It was a typical Friday evening when everything started to unravel. I was sitting on the couch in our cozy living room, surrounded by Sam's friends. We had all gathered for a casual get-together, the kind where everyone just hangs out, drinks a little, and jokes around. The room was filled with laughter, and I could feel the easy camaraderie between Sam and his friends. They had all known each other for years, and it was clear they were comfortable with one another. I wasn't exactly a part of their inner circle yet, but I had been dating Sam for almost a year, and I was starting to fit in. Sam was charismatic, the kind of guy everyone was drawn to. People loved him, and he loved being the center of attention. He would tell stories, crack jokes, and everyone would laugh. I didn't mind playing the quieter one in the group. It made me feel more like an observer, a little detached, but not in a bad way. We were all sitting around the coffee table, a few beers in hand, and Sam was in the middle of recounting a ridiculous story about a recent hiking trip. He was animated, gesturing wildly, trying to capture the attention of everyone in the room. His friends were laughing hysterically, and I couldn't help but smile. Sam was good at making people laugh, and there was something infectious about his energy. But then, something happened. One of his friends, Mark, who had been a bit quieter than the others, made a comment about how Sam had been acting like a drama queen during the hike. Everyone laughed, including Sam, but I could see his eyes narrow just slightly. I knew Sam liked being the center of attention, but I had never seen him get upset over a joke like this before. He wasn't someone who typically took offense. It was almost like he was used to being the subject of jokes. But for some reason, Mark's comment hit a nerve, and Sam didn't let it slide as easily as usual. Without thinking much of it, I decided to jump in. I saw an opportunity to tease Sam lightly, to keep the mood light and playful. I turned to him and said, "Oh, come on, Beta, stop being so dramatic. It was just a joke. Nothing malicious, nothing serious." I meant it in a playful way, referencing the ridiculousness of the story Sam had told, not his masculinity or anything like that. To me, it was just a silly nickname. I had called him Beta before in private, never with any ill intent. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I saw Sam's face change. His smile faltered for a split second, and his eyes, which had been sparkling with humor just moments before, went cold. It was as if the room had frozen. The laughter around us died down a little, and the other people in the group seemed to sense that something had shifted. I thought maybe he was just playing along, trying to act offended for fun, but when I looked at him more closely, I realized he wasn't. His jaw was clenched, and he was staring at me with an intensity one wasn't used to. The light-hearted atmosphere had suddenly disappeared, replaced by something thick and uncomfortable. For a second, I froze too. I hadn't meant to hurt him. I had no idea why my words had affected him so much. I tried to make a joke to ease the tension, but Sam didn't smile. He didn't even laugh. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor, and grabbed his jacket off the back of the couch. "I'm done with this," he muttered, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. And just like that, he was walking out the door, leaving his friends and me in stunned silence. I sat there, my mind racing. What had just happened? I had barely processed the shift in his demeanor when I saw his friends exchanging confused looks. Mark, the one who had initially joked with Sam, tried to make light of the situation, but it was clear no one knew what to say. Sam's reaction had thrown everyone off guard, including me. I felt completely helpless, like I had said something horrible, but I still couldn't figure out why my comment had hurt him so much. I sat there in silence for a few moments, the weight of the situation starting to sink in. Had I crossed a line? Was it something about the joke I made? I had thought we were fine, that I knew him well enough to joke around without causing harm. But in that moment, I realized that I might have misunderstood something deeper about Sam, something I hadn't been able to see before. The next few hours were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything, not even the conversation going on around me. My mind kept replaying that moment over and over, trying to make sense of it. Sam had always been playful, always laughing and making jokes, but his reaction to my comment was unlike anything I had ever seen from him. It wasn't just a moment of irritation or annoyance, it was something deeper, something that shook him to his core. After he left, I sat there, frozen, unsure of what to do. I texted him right away, hoping that maybe he just needed some space, that he would come back when he had calmed down. "Hey, I'm really sorry if I upset you. I didn't mean anything by it," I typed, trying to sound as sincere as I felt. But no reply came. I waited for what felt like hours, staring at my phone screen, watching the dots appear and disappear in the messaging app. Every time I saw them, I thought he was about to respond, but he didn't. The silence was deafening. It only made me more anxious, more confused. I kept trying to rationalize what had happened. It was just a joke, right? We had joked like that before. Maybe I had just been a little too casual with my words, but surely it wasn't something that could destroy everything we had. Or was it? I couldn't wrap my head around it. What had I missed? What had I done wrong? As the evening stretched into night, I felt the growing weight of loneliness and regret. Sam wasn't answering my messages or calls. I even tried reaching out to one of his friends, Mark, but he didn't have any answers. He said he hadn't seen Sam that upset in a long time, but he didn't know what had really caused it either. The whole group had been thrown off by the sudden shift in Sam's mood. They were just as confused as I was. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Sam. I had hoped it would be an explanation or an apology, but it wasn't. Instead, it was short, clipped, and to the point. "I think we need to talk. I can't do this anymore, Lily." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. What did that mean? What was he trying to say? I thought back to every moment we'd spent together, every conversation we'd had, and I still couldn't figure out why this one little joke had caused everything to spiral. I felt like I was losing him, and I didn't even understand why. I called him again, but still no answer. My frustration mounted. Was this over something as trivial as a joke? It didn't seem like Sam, who had always been the one to brush off the little things and laugh them off. This time, though, it felt different. It felt like he was shutting me out completely. By the time the afternoon came, I was desperate. I didn't know how to fix this, didn't know what to say to make things right. I thought maybe if I gave him some space, he would come around, but I didn't know how much longer I could bear the silence. I was drowning in uncertainty, unable to understand why a joke, a word, really, had changed everything. I needed to hear from him, to understand what had gone wrong. But all I could do was wait. And that waiting was slowly breaking me. It was late afternoon when Sam finally called. My heart skipped a beat when I saw his name flash across my screen. I had been waiting for this moment all day, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure how to approach him. My mind was racing with all the things I wanted to say, but I knew I had to stay calm, to listen. I answered quickly, trying to sound as composed as I could, though my voice was shaky. "Sam?" I asked, almost pleading. There was a long pause before he spoke. His voice sounded distant, cold. "Lily, I'm not sure where to begin," he said, his words hanging heavy between us. "You've really hurt me, and I need you to understand that. It's not just about the joke. It's about how you treat me, how you see me." I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. "Sam, it was just a joke," I said, trying to explain. "You know I didn't mean anything by it. It was just something silly, nothing serious." He sighed heavily on the other end of the line. "That's the problem, Lily. You think it's just something silly, but it isn't. It's how you've always treated me, like I'm some kind of joke. It's like you don't take me seriously. And I've had enough of it." My chest tightened at his words. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Sam, I don't see you that way," I said, my voice shaking. "I love you. I've never thought of you like that, not once." Another long silence followed. I could hear him breathing on the other end, but he didn't speak. It felt like an eternity, and the silence was suffocating. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. I thought about our relationship, about how we had been happy just the night before, laughing together with his friends. How had it all changed so quickly? Finally, Sam spoke again, his voice quieter this time. You don't get it, do you? It's not just about that one thing, Lily. It's about how you make me feel, like I'm not good enough, like I'm not your equal. You laugh at me in front of others, like I'm a joke to you, and I can't keep doing this anymore. His words hit me harder than anything else. I had never realized that my teasing had gone beyond playful banter. In my mind, it was harmless, just a silly nickname, just a joke. But to Sam, it felt like an ongoing pattern, a constant reminder that he wasn't being seen or respected the way he deserved. I never wanted to make you feel that way, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I love you, Sam. I didn't mean to hurt you. But instead of the warmth I had hoped for, there was a bitter coldness in his response. I don't know if I can believe that anymore, Lily. This isn't the first time. I've tried to brush it off, but I can't keep pretending it doesn't hurt. His words were like a dagger, and I felt the sharp pain of rejection deep in my chest. I'm sorry, I said, fighting back tears. I never saw it like that. I didn't mean to make you feel unimportant. He didn't respond for a long moment. When he finally spoke again, his voice was softer, but there was no trace of the warmth it used to have. I need time, Lily. I need space to figure things out. I can't do this right now. I felt the weight of his words crush me. The distance between us was growing, and I couldn't bridge it. The man I loved, the person I thought I knew so well, was slipping away from me. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. The following days were a blur of confusion and pain. I gave Sam the space he asked for, though every part of me screamed to reach out, to beg him to come back, to make things right. But I knew deep down that pushing him any further would only make things worse. I tried to keep busy, to distract myself, but my mind kept circling back to that one moment, that joke, and the way everything had unraveled so quickly. I found myself replaying our conversations in my head, trying to find clues, trying to figure out if there had been signs I had missed. I thought back to the times I had teased him, even when I thought it was harmless. The nickname, the jokes, the small comments that I had brushed off as nothing serious. But now, in the aftermath, I realized just how wrong I had been. I started to understand. The jokes, the teasing, it wasn't just about one moment. It wasn't about the words I said, it was about how I had been treating him all along. I had always thought of our relationship as one filled with love and laughter, but what I failed to see was that I had been undermining him, not in big, obvious ways, but in the small, everyday moments. I had reduced him to a punchline, without even realizing it. Sam wasn't just hurt by that one comment. It was the accumulation of all those little moments, those little cuts that I hadn't noticed. It was how I hadn't respected him in the way he deserved. He had put up with it for so long, probably hoping I would change, hoping I would see the impact my words had on him. But I hadn't. And now, the damage was done. I spent a lot of time reflecting during those days, trying to understand why I had acted that way. Was it insecurity? Was it the need to feel superior, even if it was just in a joking way? I had never intended to hurt Sam, but I had. And in the silence that followed, I realized that my behavior had eroded the trust between us. Trust that took time to build but only seconds to break. I also realized that I had to face the truth about myself. I had been so focused on the fun, on the banter, on the laughs, that I hadn't seen how deeply Sam had been affected by it all. I had made him feel less than, like he wasn't enough. And now, I had to come to terms with the fact that I had pushed him away, not because of one mistake, but because of a pattern I had failed to recognize. By the time Sam finally reached out to me again, I was a mess. I had spent days beating myself up, feeling guilty, and hoping he would come back. But I knew, in my heart, that it wasn't just about apologizing anymore. It wasn't just about saying the right words. It was about showing him that I understood the pain I had caused. And that was going to take more than just words. When Sam called, I knew it was time to face the truth, to be honest with him and with myself. I wasn't sure if we could fix what had been broken, but I knew I had to try. And this time, I was ready to listen. To really listen. It was a week after that phone call, a week of reflection, self-doubt, and an aching emptiness that I couldn't shake. The quiet between Sam and me was suffocating, but it had also given me the time I needed to understand what had gone wrong. I had been so caught up in my own world, in my own insecurities and need for attention, that I hadn't noticed the toll it had taken on him. I had to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't just sorry for one mistake, I was sorry for every moment where I had made him feel less than. When Sam finally called me again, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had been prepared for the worst, for him to say it was over, that he couldn't do this anymore. But when I picked up the phone, I didn't hear anger or coldness in his voice. I heard exhaustion. A tiredness that mirrored my own. "Lily, can we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than I remembered. I agreed to meet him at the small park near my apartment, a place that had always been neutral ground for us. The trees around us swayed gently in the breeze, and for the first time in days, I felt the weight of the world lift, just slightly. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I had to face him and, more importantly, face the truth about myself. Sam was already sitting on the bench when I arrived, his face serious but not angry. I sat next to him, keeping some distance between us. The air between us felt thick, but neither of us said anything at first. We just sat there, letting the silence speak for us. Finally, Sam broke the quiet. "I've had a lot of time to think about everything," he said, his eyes focused on the ground. "I wasn't angry, Lily." "Not really." I was hurt. But not just because of that one joke. It was everything that had come before. All those little moments, like you never really saw me for who I was. I couldn't keep pretending it didn't bother me. "I know," I whispered, fighting the lump in my throat. "I know I hurt you, Sam. And I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much I was making you feel invisible. I didn't mean to. I thought I was just being playful, but I see now how it wore on you, how I chipped away at your self-esteem. I'm ashamed of how I acted." Sam looked up at me then, his eyes tired but soft. "I wasn't perfect either, you know. I didn't say anything at the time. I should have told you how I felt, but I didn't. I thought maybe it would change on its own. But it didn't. And that's on me too." The vulnerability in his voice took me by surprise. I had spent so much time thinking I was the only one who had messed up, but hearing him admit his own faults opened something in me. It wasn't just about the things I had done wrong, it was about the way we had both avoided talking about what truly mattered, about how we had been too afraid to speak up when it was needed the most. We talked for hours that day, sitting in the park as the sun set behind us. We laid bare our insecurities, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the weight of the conversation felt too much to bear, but we pushed through it. We were finally, truly listening to each other. By the time we stood up to leave, I felt a shift between us. We weren't back to where we were before, it would take time for things to fully heal, but I could see the path forward. We both understood now that love wasn't just about the good times, the laughter, the fun. It was about respect, about communication, and about being vulnerable enough to admit when you've been wrong. I didn't know what the future held for us, but for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Sam turned to me as we walked back to our cars. "I don't know what's going to happen next, Lily," he said quietly, "but I think we're both ready to work on this. Together." "I'm ready," I replied, my voice steady. "For us. For real change." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But in that moment, We both knew we were going to try. And that was enough for me. For the first time in a long time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, we could heal, and this time, we would do it together.